The key word here is prosperity. I think I'm going to call the Greens in future the Prosperity Party, because prosperity means well-being. It means fulfilment. It means an assured future. And it means together, whereas growth cuts out all those things and hands them across to the few. And the question is, how do we do it? Well, the first thing to know is there is no alternative. We know that, and we all do our back-of-envelope calculations, we know we cannot continue the growth model. Mr Rudd might advocate it and say bigger, faster, that's better. Mr Turnbull might say, me too, only I'd do it even faster. They may bring in their emissions trading scheme, and Mr Rudd says, I'll give $16.5 billion to the polluters, your money, on the basis of those who pollute the most get the most. As somebody writing to The Age commented last week, did they do that with asbestos? No. Are they going... Can't they see the connection with the burning of coal and fossil fuels? Well, they can, but they're under the thumb, thanks to media entities as well, of the big coal barons and the big polluting entities. So Mr Rudd says $16.5 billion. Well, Mr Turnbull's been in a huddle with the coalition, and he's kept Barnaby in there with him, at least so far as they offer the polluters an extra $20 billion, by one calculation, over the coming 20 years. An extra $20 billion, based on the more you pollute, the more you get. That is money not available for that fantastic solar enterprise at Mildura. That is money not available to ensure that the water that falls on this city, free of charge, is used by the denizens of this city instead of a multi-billion-dollar farce of a desalination plant, which is going to put everybody's costs up. That is billions of dollars not available for schools, hospitals, very fast trains, better public transport. Because it's on the growth model, which says we must keep the enterprises which have given us prosperity in the past going even further. It's totally illogical. And when you get to the point we're at now, where time is up and the polluter pays principle ought to be invoked, both the big parties and our Prime Minister and our Leader of the Opposition are in a race to see who can reward the cause of the problem with the biggest handout to keep going. Talk about absurd. Fruit Loops. Talk about fairies at the bottom of the garden. It is, if you were not in the thick of it, one or part of, as somebody has described it, the biggest collective suicide note in history. And seriously, that's what we're looking at. And these parties believe that this growth model is where we must go. And you do the back of the envelope calculation and you see that if we do go, when I was born, 1944, nobody else in this place remembers that, nor do I, there were 2.5 billion people on the planet. There are now 6.8 billion. It's tripled in my lifetime. It's estimated that there will be 9 to 11 billion in 2050. That's 41 years from now. And if we have the estimated growth that Mr Rudd, Mr Turnbull, Chancellor Merkel, Mr Brown, the Obama administration, Lula, the whole crowd of them, are wanting. And we bring the people who are dispossessed on this planet up to our level of consumption. That 2 billion people living on $2 or less a day at the moment. Then we need at least 2 more planets this century to simply supply the basic needs of life, and then the accelerated appreciation on that, which is the growth phenomenon. Now, it patently can't happen, but Labor is putting its foot on the accelerator, the Liberals are putting its foot on the accelerator, and the National Party somewhere out sitting on the front, driving with its hands behind its face. And, you know, I have folk come up and say, look, Bob, I'm really interested in what the Greens are doing. I put you second on the ballot paper last time. And I've given up being just easy going and saying, oh, that's nice. I now explain you have a choice. It's not just between green and greed. Because as Gandhi said, this planet has enough for everybody's need, but not for their greed. It is a choice between the Greens and the destruction of our hopes in the future. And it isn't a doom and gloom process we're facing here. They can have all the cartoons we like. This is the scientific and economic rationale of the situation we are in. This is the best minds on the planet telling us this. And so when the Greens say, well, we'll go minimum along with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, giving us these hair-raising predictions, which are seemingly relentlessly but rapidly getting worse about the fate of the planet with climate change, we'll set this nation's goal for the Copenhagen talks at 25 to 40%, 25 if they do, the world does nothing, 40% if the rest of the world really agrees to go at it, reduction in greenhouse gases over 1990 levels by 2020. It is seen as being right out there. It brought us invective from Heather Ridout of the Australian Industry Group the other day about what planet are these people living on. Well, Heather, yours. And the problem is, you see, is the curtain brought over the rational brain by the instant prospect, by the instinctive prospect of helping self. And the reality of this is that those people in control of the planet are showing a primordial acquiescence to instinct over this new, powerful intellect and empathy which we as human beings have. The Greens are a party of intellect and empathy over that instinctiveness which is driving the coal industry, the polluters, the resource extractors, and the politicians who serve them. I am delighted that Tim Jackson's book is with us. It isn't the answer, but it is the search for a new economic paradigm, which says, above all, we know this is a finite planet. We know our consumption and the imbalance in it. We have to live within those finite parameters of the resource availability of this planet, and we have to share it. And we have to, third, seek the way to do that. And current economics is the opposite, the wrong direction. So tomorrow, I recommend everybody comes along and listens to this search for new economy. Well on the way to answers, because we Greens don't have all the answers. But we do know what we have to achieve. The means may not be abundantly clear, although democracy is at the heart of it. And we are on the road to achieving those means, because I and we believe that humanity has the intellect and the empathy to turn this whole disastrous direction around and bring sustainability to this planet for our sake, for our fellow creatures' sake, and for the generations yet to come. Next year is the year of biodiversity. It brings us back again to think of all the creatures we share this fabulous planet with. One might be forgiven for thinking it will be the year of bioperversity if the pulp mill goes ahead, if the Traveston Dam on the Mary River is given the tick-off, with the gas works going ahead on Barrow Island, one of the most compacted, endangered species rich places on the face of the planet. This great nation can do much better than that. It will do much better than that. But it is our responsibility, all of us, equally, to take, and this whole community, because if Australia can't do it, no one else is going to help turn this ship around through good-hearted, wise, scientifically based, economically renewed politics which are going to achieve that security for the planet, which at the moment it is having withdrawn from it utterly and totally by the politics of Labor and Liberal. One of the things, let me just finish on this. I get asked quite frequently, as I said earlier, Bob, why are you still feeling bouncy? And the first thing about that is, when I was young, I went through a period of depression, and that's reality. You look at it, and you choose optimism or pessimism. They both feed on each other. You ultimately, empirically, have to take what you want. But I am a member of a new political party. I ran into those nascent Greens in Tasmania at the time of Lake Pedro. I went there as a young doctor and was spellbound. Here were people talking cohesive comments. They had politics. They had policies for equality on basis of gender, sexuality, race, and inclusiveness, agriculture, industry, education, health. It was all integrated. And we've learned a lot more since then. But I got stopped on the way here from the hotel, as my friends will witness, by this big raw youth having his pint outside the pub who just yelled out, "Bob, I love you." And there's a whole essay written into that. But I yelled back at him, "Mate, I love you too." And the reason for that is that... You too. Thank you. The reason for that is, and there you go, I hope he brought the pint with him. The reason for that is that we are a moving footway. We're moving, we're handing the baton on. And if you can see, the generation now rising has got a global knowledge and interconnectedness and an education about what's going on, which just didn't exist when I was young. And I get that salutation all around the country. 20 years ago it was abuse, wall to wall, whether it was Hobart, Geraldton or Townsville, didn't matter. I used to be a little fearful of going for a walk by myself. You know, there's a certain amount you can put up with. If you're in the menswear department at Myers, you expect you're able to look at the tyres, well, you know, whatever, without getting abused, but I couldn't. Now it's quite the other way around. Now that is what the Greens, it's not a personal thing, this is about philosophy and policy. That is the indication that enough of what we are doing and saying is getting to the wider society to have people feel there is hope in this. And there is. And to know that young people are so enlivened by this growing solution for the way the world is, it charges me with optimism. I never thought I'd live to see the day. And that brings me back to congestion. Ken Henry, the Secretary, I've got to say this because I said it on... My driver said this morning, during the day, he said, I was listening to 3AW this morning at 5 o'clock and I heard you talking about a congestion tax. What's that? And I had to explain to him that it didn't have to do with pneumonia. But a congestion tax or a green city gratuity is simply saying, as has Bergen in Norway and London and Valletta and many other cities, Milano, around the world now, to decongest our cities, those who use the cities will pay for that use. And the money that comes from that will provide those who want to stay out of their vehicles fast, efficient, beautiful public transports, walkways and cycleways. And we can achieve that, with or without a congestion tax. Earlier this year, we, with great misgivings, helped the government get through its $42 billion stimulus, which we're told has saved us from recession. And that'll bring me back to Ken Henry. But part of that was we went to the government and said, well, we want some goods out of this. And as a result, $60 million for heritage refurbishment around this country. The national government's budget for looking after old buildings and national parks in terms of protecting their heritage was $250,000. And the stroke of a pen, the Greens made that $60,250,000 with the consequent thousands of jobs this year being created. And with we said bikeways. There is no budget for that. We got a $30 million government bikeway plan. And on the last morning, I said to the Treasurer's people, well, we're nearly there. We want an extra $10 million for bikeways. And they said, oh, yes. So it's $40 million for bikeways. And I promise that that will keep coming. I look forward to, with you, to the conference over the weekend. I once again thank the organisers. I come back again to saying green is where it is. I'm no longer hesitant about that even. I do not see the alternative to this fantastic concept which has arisen philosophically, politically, and is now well on the road to providing an alternative economic direction which will be the solution to humanity's collision with the planet to bring us back into an enduring, living and loving relationship with ourselves, our fellow creatures, and this planet into the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.